Welcome back to the deep dive. If you've ever, walked through a major capital city, London, Rome, D.C., you've definitely seen today's topic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a monument that seems pretty simple structurally, but it carries just this incredible weight of empires, thousands of years of history, human ingenuity. We are staring up at the obelisk.
Exactly. And it's way more than just a pillar, isn't it? It's like a physical record. It shows us this clash of ancient religion, imperial conquest, and, well, some truly staggering feats of engineering.
Yeah, staggering feels like the right word.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about these, we should probably be precise. Our sources define the obelisk as, that tall, slender, four-sided shaft. It tapers up, ends in that little pyramid shape at the top, the pyramidion.
Right, the pyramidion.
But here's a really key distinction, historically speaking.
Okay.
The original ancient Egyptian ones, they were monolithic,
Ah, yeah, single stone.
carved entirely from one massive piece of rock. Most modern ones, like, say, the Washington Monument, they're actually built up from lots of separate stones. Big difference.
Huge difference. And even the name we use, obelisk, that's got its own layer of history. The ancient Egyptians, the ones who really perfected this form, they called it tekinu.
Tikinu.
Yeah. The word obelisk actually comes from Greek, obeliskos, and it rather humorously means something like spit or nail, a pointed pillar.
A spit or a nail. That's kind of blunt for a, 400-ton monument, isn't
A
it?
little bit. Very descriptive, though.
A giant nail hammered into the ground of history, I guess. So our mission today, our deep dive, is to trace this object. First, understand its deep spiritual meaning back in Egypt.
Right, where it all started.
Then track its, frankly, bizarre journey across the globe. It became this prized object, often looted,
Yeah.
taken as a symbol of conquest.
A trophy, really.
Exactly. And finally, we want to get into the dirt and sand, so to speak, and figure out the mind-boggling logistics. How on earth did they move and stand these colossal things up?
It's the ultimate lesson, isn't it? Practical physics meeting, well, divine ambition.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Egypt, the Nile. Obelisks were absolutely central, weren't they? Egyptian temples, religion.
Oh, completely. Always placed in pairs,
Yeah.
right at the massive entrances to the temples. You couldn't miss them.
A grand statement.
Definitely. And their role connects directly to the sun god Ra. But what's really fascinating is the conceptual idea behind the obelisk, especially during Akhenaten's time, his controversial religious changes.
Yeah, the Eton focus.
Exactly. The obelisk wasn't just symbolic of the sun or near it. It was described as a petrified ray of the Aten, the sun disk itself, like literally sunlight made solid stone.
Wow. So like a permanent phone line to the sun god? That's intense.
Pretty much. And the symbolism goes deeper. Our sources trace the shape back to the Benben stone.
Okay, the Ben stone. Now, that's not the physical capstone, right? That's the pyramidion. The Ben is more mythological.
That's right. Good distinction. The pyramidion is the physical cap you see. The Benben stone is the original mythical mound that supposedly rose out of the primordial waters, Numen, right at the dawn of creation in their stories.
Ah, okay. So when they put up these obelisks, they weren't just erecting a pillar. They were kind of recreating the moment the world began.
Exactly. Tapping into that primordial power, reenacting creation itself at the temple gateway.
So if they're recreating the moment of creation, why always in pairs? Is it just doubling down on the symbolism? Or do the two pillars maybe represent something else? Duality? The horizon, maybe?
That's a great question. The texts aren't always super explicit about the why too aspect, but one really compelling idea ties into watching the sky. Astronomy.
Okay.
Well, the tapering shapes, both the pyramid and the obelisk, they might have been inspired by things you actually see in the sky around sunrise and sunset. Things like sun pillars or zodiacal light, these vertical beams of light.
Natural phenomena.
Yeah. So if the shape mimics those light columns appearing on the horizon, then putting up two pillars could literally frame the sun god's journey. Framing the sunrise and sunset.
They were building celestial gateposts. That's amazing. And we can still see one in its original spot, right?
We can. The oldest temple obelisk, still standing where it was first erected, it's the obelisk of Senusret the 12th dynasty.
Right, in modern Heliopolis.
Yep. Red granite, 120 metric tons. It's been there for, nearly 4,000 years. A powerful reminder of just how ancient this tradition is.
And it wasn't just the Egyptians either. The idea spread.
Oh, yeah. It definitely influenced neighbors. You see the Nubian kings, 25th dynasty. They also built these very Egyptian-style monuments King Pi, for instance, he put up an obelisk.
Same style.
Pretty much Egyptianizing,
Right.
yeah. But they were practical. They used local black granite instead of hauling it all the way from Aswan. Smart move. It shows this was a major architectural statement across that whole region, the Middle Nile.
But the obelisk story, it doesn't stay purely spiritual, does it? It takes a really sharp turn towards imperialism.
Absolutely. When Rome conquers Egypt around 30 BCE, everything changes for the obelisk. The Romans didn't just admire them from afar, they wanted them. They systematically looted temple complexes.
Looted is the word. The sheer scale of it is kind of hard to grasp.
It really is. If you just look at the numbers today, there are actually more ancient Egyptian obelisks standing outside Egypt now, mostly in Rome, than are left in Egypt itself.
That's incredible. So they became the ultimate status symbol for Rome.
The ultimate imperial trophy, proof that Rome had conquered the ancient mystical land of the pharaohs.
And there are two giants in Rome that really define this obsession, aren't there?
Oh, yeah. You've got the Lateran obelisk. That holds the record. Largest standing ancient monolithic obelisk in the world. It's, 32.2 meters tall? And weighs a terrifying 455 metric tons.
455 tons.
Yeah.
Just, wow.
And the other famous one? The Vatican obelisk. The one in the middle of St. Peter's Square. Smaller, but still massive. 25 meters, 331 tons. Emperor Caligula brought that one over in 37 CE. And the story of just getting it there is legendary in itself.
Yes. Pliny the Elder wrote about this, didn't he? The special barge they had to build.
He did. It needed this enormous mast made of fir wood. Pliny claims it was so thick, 4 men couldn't link arms around it.
Unbelievable. And they needed ballast, too.
Tons of it. Apparently 120 bushels of lentils just to keep this huge top-heavy ship stable on the journey. Can you imagine calculating that? Okay, guys, how many lentils for a 331-ton stone?
It sounds almost comical, the lentils part. But the really telling part, the real display of Roman power, is what happened after the obelisk arrived, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Once that gigantic barge delivered its cargo, they didn't, repair it or reuse it for something else. No.
What did they do?
They filled it with stones and concrete, essentially, and deliberately sank it.
Sank it. On purpose.
Yep. Sank it right there to form the foundation of the new harbor quay they were building at Ostia, the port of Rome.
Wait, so this wasn't just practical disposal. It was a statement. A flex, as we'd say today.
The ultimate flex.
We have so much wealth, so many resources, we could just build the most complex transport vessel maybe ever conceived up to that point, use it once, and then sink it to make part of a dock.
Exactly. It screams imperial dominance. The sheer scale and honestly the wastefulness of it is just a testament to Rome's perceived endless power and resources at the time.
Incredible. And, while Egypt is the origin, it's worth remembering that this idea, the tall, tapering, monumental pillar, it pops up elsewhere, too.
Yeah, the basic form seems almost universal for marking importance. You look at, say, the Assyrian black obelisk of Shalmaneser III, found in modern Iraq.
Different style, though.
Oh, yeah, stylistically very different. Not monolithic in the same way. It's a ceremonial four-sided pillar, but it's covered in reliefs depicting military victories and conquered kings paying tribute. Shows Jehu, the Israelite king, bowing down. So it's about power, but more earthly power.
Conquest, not creation.
Pretty much. And then, way across the Atlantic, totally separate development, you have things like the Tello obelisk in Peru, pre-Columbian.
Also monolithic.
Yep, a single stone stele covered in these really intricate Chavin symbols. So it seems like creating these tall, permanent, inscribed pillars is just something major civilizations do. It's a fundamental impulse.
Right. Fast forward quite a bit through the centuries. The obelisk's meaning shifts again, doesn't it? Less about gods or conquest, more about human mastery, engineering skill, especially in the Renaissance.
Definitely. And that brings us to one of the most famous engineering spectacles of the 16th century, the re-erection of that Vatican obelisk.
The one Caligula brought over.
The very same one. It had been lying down for centuries. Pope Sixtus V decided he wanted it standing proud in front of the new St. Peter's Basilica in 1586. The job went to an architect-engineer named Domenico Fontana.
And this was a huge deal.
Oh, massive. Remember, it's 331 tons. Fontana had to move it across the piazza and then lift it upright on land without, Roman era massive shipyards or modern cranes. It was an organizational masterpiece. Took nearly 1,000 men.
1,000 workers.
Yep, almost 1,000 men, 140 cart horses pulling ropes, and 47 specially designed cranes and windlasses. Just imagine coordinating that.
The noise alone must have been incredible.
But the product's legacy wasn't just getting the stone up, was it?
No, not at all. You're thinking of the book he published afterwards.
Exactly.
Fontana meticulously documented the entire process, calculations, drawings, everything. He published this amazing book full of detailed copperplate etchings showing the scaffolding, the ropes, the machines, the sequence of operations.
Like an instruction manual for moving mountains. Pretty much. And it got circulated widely across Europe. It became this landmark publication, setting a completely new standard for how you communicate complex technical and engineering information. It was almost engineering PR, showing off the brilliance involved.
Engineering is art and science communication. And that desire, that global fascination with these ancient Egyptian giants, it didn't stop there.
Nope. The 19th century saw another wave. 3 more big ones got shipped out of Egypt. The 2 known as Cleopatra's Needles. One went to London, the other to New York.
Right, I've seen the one in London.
And the Luxor Obelisk, which now stands in the Place de la Concorde in Paris. These became huge symbols for those imperial capitals, too.
And today, the form still resonates, even if they're not ancient monoliths anymore.
Absolutely. The obelisk shape still signifies permanence, commemoration, state power. Think of the Washington Monument. Okay, it's masonry, built from blocks, not monolithic, but the shape is pure obelisk. Same for the monument to the people's heroes in Beijing or the obelisk of Buenos Aires. They all use that visual language.
It's quite versatile, too. You see smaller ones used as grave markers. Beethoven's tomb, for example.
Right. Or even just as decorative elements, like those little obelisks you see lining the Via della Conciliazione in Rome, the road leading to St. Peter's. They actually double as lampposts.
From a sacred sun symbol to a street lamp, that's quite a journey.
It really tells a story, doesn't it?
Okay, let's get into the really nitty-gritty now.
Yep.
The physics. How do you actually move, let alone stand up? A 455-ton single piece of stone, without hydraulics, without massive diesel engines, the logistics just seem almost impossible.
This is where the deep dive gets really fascinating, I think. And thankfully, we have more than just speculation. Modern researchers, like the team on that Nouvier experiment back in 1999, they've used experimental archaeology, trying to replicate the ancient methods.
Okay, so what did they find? How do you even start to move something that heavy?
Well, they started smaller. They ran towing trials with a still respectable 25-ton block. And they actually failed the first couple of times.
Failed?
They underestimated the friction massively. Finally, they figured out a system using a wooden sledge, moving it over a prepared path with wooden rails, kept constantly wet to reduce friction. And they used big levers to kind of nudge it forward inch by inch.
Okay, wet rails, levers, sounds plausible. But the manpower needed.
Ah, yeah, this is the kicker. For that 25-ton block, it took 130 people pulling ropes simultaneously, plus more people working the levers.
130 people for 25 tons.
And even then, they only managed to move it about 10 to 20 feet in an entire day's work.
10 feet a day.
Maybe 20 on a good day.
Yeah.
So you have to completely recalibrate your idea of manual labor when you imagine moving the Lateran obelisk, which is nearly 20 times heavier. The scale is just monumental.
Monumental labor for a monumental stone. It's staggering. And that's just moving it on land. What about by river? We know the granite came from Aswan, way up the Nile.
Right, the Nile was the highway, so they also looked into the kind of barge you'd need, especially for the biggest obelisks.
What did they find?
The calculations and experiments suggested the ancient barges would have had to be enormous, roughly 200 feet long, but about 100 feet wide.
Wait, 100 feet wide? That's almost square.
Almost. That incredibly wide 2-to-1 length-to-width ratio, it seems that was crucial for stability, to prevent this immensely heavy concentrated load from just tipping the whole vessel over, especially if the Nile got a bit choppy.
Okay, so a giant, super stable, custom-built barge gets it, eventually, to the temple site. But then comes the really scary part, right? Standing it up. How do you lift something that tall, that heavy, without the whole thing just snapping under its own weight or the ground giving way?
This is where the ancient engineers were truly brilliant. The most convincing method, proven again by that 1999 experiment, is the sandpit method.
The sand pit. Okay, how does that work?
You build a massive ramp leading up to the pedestal where the obelisk will stand. But directly in front of the pedestal, you dig a big pit, and you fill that pit completely with dry sand.
Dry sand. Why dry?
Critical point. Dry sand flows very evenly and predictably. unlike wet sand or just dirt. So you maneuver the obelisk, base first, down the ramp until its bottom edge is resting over the sand-filled pit.
Okay, it's lying horizontally over the pit.
Exactly. Then you have teams of workers controlling ropes, mainly for stability and guidance. And slowly, carefully, methodically, you start removing the dry sand from underneath the base of the obelisk, letting it flow out of chutes or openings at the bottom of the pit.
Ah, so as the sand level drops.
Gravity takes over. The base of the obelisk slowly, gently tilts downwards into the emptying space.
You're letting controlled gravity do most of the heavy lifting.
Precisely. Gravity does the vast majority of the work, tilting the obelisk up towards vertical. It continues tilting until the base catches an especially designed turning groove on the pedestal. We actually find these grooves on ancient pedestals, which is strong evidence.
So the groove stops it sliding out.
Right. And this sand-draining gravity tilting process gets the obelisk maybe 75 degrees upright, pretty much most of the way. Only for the final maybe 15 degrees or so do you need the big teams pulling hard on ropes to haul it the rest of the way to perfectly vertical.
That is ingenious, using sand as a giant slow-motion hydraulic jack almost.
It's incredibly clever. And the best part, we have written evidence too, not just the physical grooves.
Really?
There's a 3,000-year-old papyrus scroll, an administrative document. It actually contains instructions for a scribe telling him to oversee the work, end quote. Empty the space that has been filled with sand beneath the monument of thy Lord.
No way. That's amazing. Direct confirmation from 3,000 years ago.
It's pretty incredible documentation. It confirms the theory beautifully. It shows this blend of, profound religious motivation, the monument of thy Lord, and incredibly practical, clever engineering.
The obelisk really does connect those two worlds, doesn't it? The spiritual fervor of the ancient Egyptians and the sheer mechanical precision and ingenuity of their engineers. It's kind of the perfect symbol for both human faith and human capability.
Well put. It embodies both.
So, wrapping this up, what does this journey of the obelisk tell us today? What's the takeaway?
Well, we've seen it morph, haven't we? From this deeply sacred, monolithic sun symbol in Egypt to becoming the ultimate statement of imperial conquest and power for Rome.
A trophy.
Yeah. And then centuries later, its re-erection becomes this defining moment for Renaissance engineering prowess and technical communication. It's such a simple geometric form, yet it carries all these layers of meaning, and it still defines monumental scale for us today across totally different cultures and times.
A simple shape with a profoundly complex story. And just to leave you, our listeners, with one final thought, something to really mull over about the scale we've been talking about. Consider that sandpit method again.
Oh.
To erect the truly huge obelisks, like the Lateran one, think about the infrastructure needed just for the erection process itself, that ramp, the platform over the pit. Estimates suggest it would have required over 1 million cubic meters of material.
1 million cubic meters of stone, mud brick, sand.
Exactly. Just to build the temporary setup needed to raise the actual monument.
Wow. So the temporary structure, the scaffolding essentially, was itself a colossal engineering project, a mountain built just to stand up a pillar.
Makes you think, doesn't it? Until next time on The Deep Dive.